So welcome. This is a very quick overview of how to make your own Padlet. I'm already logged into Padlet. To do that, you go to padlet.com and you have to create an account or log in with your account information. The free account, I think, gives you 3 Padlets, which you can reuse and remake as you need. Here we are logged into a paid account that is used by a number of different staff members. And so you can see the whole history of all our Padlets, but you can also create folders. So if this is something your organization wants to do, you could have your own Padlets, own folders of Padlets, and just pay for one account. So to make a Padlet, they give us this beautiful big pink button on the left side here. So make a Padlet, I'm just going to click on that. The first decision making you need to do, and this is something to think a little bit about before you even get here, is the layout. And the layout choice is based on what you think you're going to be doing with the Padlet. So the wall is a grid, but the boxes fit into each other like bricks would. The canvas you can place wherever you want, so people can kind of plop things down on top of each other. The stream is a single column, generally the newest content going to the top, and old content moving down. The grid is a more formalized grid than the wall, where the boxes stay in set rows. It can be a little easier on the eye, depending on the kind of content, the amount of content you're going to be sharing there. The shelf is basically a series of individual feeds. So each of the columns moves on its own and can have a header and the content underneath that. People can move up and down in that content. We often use this for either sorting information or having a question on the top and having the answers come in each feed below. The back channel, obviously forum, so a single column, but the ability for people to interact with each other more directly. The map is a map of the world. You can use that for whatever you want to, but basically you're putting little, the Padlet writing spaces are placed on top of the countries. And then the timeline, which is a really great way of using a linear time frame or something like that. So anything that you would do in a horizontal line. For today, I am going to do the grid because I'm going to create a syllabus for my class. So I'm going to click select. And really, right now, you have a Padlet that people could use. So it's that easy to make your Padlet. But usually we do want to do some editing to make it, give it a name that we want it to have, maybe a description that is more related to the content, and also maybe to change the URL to something that people can more easily remember. The sort of main design element here is that the right side, we have this column that says modify. That's where you make your changes. So you don't do editing right on the Padlet page. You have to go to this modify section, and it pops up now when we're creating our Padlet. If you need to come back and modify it afterwards, you just go to the little gear icon, and I'll show you that in a moment. So we're going to go through here. We're going to change the title to syllabus. And I'm going to say I have a class called HSE2. And I'm going to also make this quarter 4. This is a syllabus. This is a syllabus for class HSE2 for April, May, and June of 2020. You can have a choice of having an icon. I actually kind of like the icons. They've changed them so they're now more similar to what you see on a phone, but I'm just going to pick a nice cute little animal. Let's do how about a bee? So now there'll be an icon. You can always turn off the icon if you don't want it. And I'm also going to give it a name here. So this is where under address, you get to customize it. I'm going to call it HSE2 quarter 4. This only has to be unique to your own Padlet list. So unlike other tools, if you've seen Bitly or other places where you get to customize your link, but they have to be unique to in the whole world. Here it's only unique to your domain. So every link you make in Padlet is going to be padlet.com/your name, in this case, the LEC / and then whatever the customization is. So as long as I haven't used this before, and I'm going to go ahead and put in 20 just to make sure that we know it's fiscal year 20. And I'm also going to change my wallpaper. It's just, this feels a little sort of sad, so I'm going to go with the bricks. You can use any of these. Obviously, there are a variety of options: solid color, gradients, textures, patterns, pictures, add your own. And then just notice to go back and forth, we get this little arrow. So when I'm in here and I want to change my wallpaper and I click on it, I get here and I make my choice, and I just have to remember to go back. That's how I move around inside the settings. I'm leaving the color scheme. You can play with that. I'm leaving the font. Again, you can play with that. Display the author name above each post. In this case, it's all going to be me, so I'm not going to do that. Here's an interesting one, right? So new position, new post position. So do you want the first one to be the one at the top on the left, or do you want the last one to be up there? And in writing a syllabus, it doesn't really matter as long as you remember what you're doing. So I'm going to leave it the way it is now. Okay, let's see here. Comments, I'm not going to have comments on here. Reactions, I'm also not going to have reactions here. Both of these could be very useful if this was a place where students were really interacting. Reactions allow people to kind of upvote or downvote ideas. Comments could be, if you're doing true or false, they could do comments right here on the Padlet. I'm not requiring approval because ultimately I'm not going to make this a writable Padlet. So we'll see that in a moment. So that's everything here that I need to work on. Once I'm done with all of that, I hit next. And you'll notice up here, the URL right now is still that long series of numbers and letters. When I hit next, it will change to the URL that I wanted it to be. So now my URL is up here the way I want it to be, with HSE 2Q420. And again, right now, we could just start posting, but I do want to check in on my security settings. So I'm going to click this, I'm going to click on start posting. And then you notice up at the top here, we have a couple of different things. So I mentioned the gear. Again, if I want to get back to any of the settings I just did, or just set, I would go to the little gear, and that would allow me to modify. And this is what you would do once you've used this and you want to make it again, or reuse this Padlet and change the name or change anything like that. You would just come back here to modify. You could do the remake, but you're going to be limited to how many you have. So remaking actually takes this, makes a copy. So instead of having one, you'd have two. For most of you, you're going to be going back to this one once it's no longer useful and changing the content in it and not remaking it. Remaking is useful if you see someone else's Padlet, like this Padlet. Once I've released it, you could make a copy of this for yourself, and then you would be the owner and you could edit it. So strangely, maybe, all the settings around security are under share. There's a little bit of logic there, but it's not where I would normally look. So I'm going to click on share. So under share, I can actually have members of this Padlet. I don't generally do that, but if you're using it with students, maybe that would be useful. They probably do need to have their own accounts then, and one of the joys here is that you don't need to have an account to look at someone else's Padlet or participate in someone else's Padlet. The privacy settings, so this is where I want to control for the visitors can write. If you were using this Padlet as a place for people to share their own thoughts or respond to questions or add their own content, you want them to be able to write here. You may do that for the beginning, and then at a certain point you might change it so it's read-only. In this case, because I'm writing a syllabus, I'm treating this more like a website. I don't want anyone else to be writing on it. So I'm going to change the privacy. So I have to click on where it says change privacy. Private means keep the Padlet hidden from the public. That means no one would see it. Password would mean that there's a password protecting it. I've not found that I need that level of security. I do tend to keep them secret, which means that they don't just pop up depending on someone's search on the internet, or even if you're looking for a specific Padlet. you know, I don't, especially if it's view only, I don't know that it really matters, but public would be the last version, which would mean that the whole world could see it. That's been very helpful for me to go find Padlets I think are useful. So in some ways you might want to do public, but basically secret or public are probably what you'll want to do. And down here is the visitor permissions. So again, right now I want this to be read only. I can change it after the fact. And I generally don't think you go from read only to write, but I could see a reason why you might start off with a write level of access, and then, you know, at a certain date, you just cut that off, and now it's a frozen in time Padlet. So I'm going to make it read only. And I'm going to save it. So make sure that you see here that you have to save. We're going to go back. So they give you some other tools here for the process of sharing. So you could copy the link to the clipboard. It is the same link as up here, so you can copy it just from the Omnibar. You can certainly copy the link from here. If you want to give people a QR code, if it's something, when we've been doing Zooms, you might want to have a QR code for the Padlet on their screen that people can scan and actually look at the Padlet on their phone. It's a nice built-in thing. And then, yeah, you see the other ones embedding in your website or your blog. You can email a link to this, put it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, put it in Google Classroom. What is interesting at the very bottom is that you have a variety of ways to pull the content from your Padlet into some other document. So you could save it as an image, you can save it as a PDF, save it as a CSV file, save as Excel spreadsheet, and print it. So again, probably not to start with, but once we make the syllabus, students might want to print it, or you might want to print it. Again, now that we're doing things at a distance, it might not help so much, but there are reasons why these could be useful to you at various times. We're going to hit close. So now my Padlet is finished. The base of my Padlet is finished. What I'm going to do is do the plus sign down here, and depending on the layout, you'll see the plus sign in different ways. This is quite common that it's a pink circle with a plus sign on it. If you're doing the one that has multiple columns, it's a little gray, or it's a plus sign that's related to the color of your background. And so people just have to get a little familiar that you're looking for the plus sign, and that's a sign that that's how you add content. So here's the tricky part. Because I'm going to go backwards, right? So the newest tile, the newest little writing area is going to come to the left of the one I just wrote. So I actually want to start at the end of the month. So I'm going to make this Thursday, April 30. And then I'm going to click out of it. If I wanted to go back and edit it, I click on the 3 dots and I can edit the post. I can make it a different color. I can transfer it somewhere else. I can copy it. I can expand it. I can delete it, right? So I would click edit, and then I could actually type in here again. Notice the different kinds of content you can add to the post. So for now, I'm not doing much of that, but you could put the actual reading in here, right? So right now, my idea is that this will be a month of little boxes. And then you can delete it, obviously, up here. So I'm going to click out of it again. I'm going to hit plus sign again, and now I'm going to have Wednesday, April 29, and I'm going to do just one row so you get a sense of it. Tuesday, keep it to our shortened version, 28, and I'm just double checking that I'm keeping the days correct. I'm famous for missing the Tuesday and the date, getting those wrong. And we'll do a Monday as well. So Monday, April 27. So now I would do this for the whole month, or in this case, we were actually talking about doing it for 3 months, but maybe I would do it a month at a time. And then when I'm ready, I could go in and edit. So for Thursday, I want to say, send vocabulary words to Nell via email. Read 2 pages of Moby Dick And then if I wanted to, I have this ability right here to put in links, right? Or to put in, if this was an ESL class and you were working on comprehension, you could actually put in a audio file in here that you could make right from your computer. You could have it click out to another Padlet. So they really give you a lot of ability to put everything in here. If you've been doing hyperdocs, this is kind of a way to make a hyperdoc, right? That you can have all the content available right here. In this example, why don't I add a Google image of Moby Dick just to have a little bit of a visual? That's a nice one. Right, so we could actually make this very pretty. And remember, I chose the format where these boxes are all going to stay in rows. Um, so there's my Padlet. So now I would take this link and I would share that either through email or however you want to do with your students. The key is that they will always know they can come back here to find their lessons. And you might want to have, you could have at the very beginning of the month instructions on, if they need to have questions or whatever, they can respond to you. So this is an example of something that I would consider asynchronous. Students would come to it when they want to come to it. They know it's there and it's content that's just waiting for them. If this was synchronous, or the way I would use it synchronously is that we would actually look at it all together when we're having a Zoom call to remind each other what the next homework assignment was. That's not a very rich synchronous activity, but you could do it that way. So again, the difference between synchronous and asynchronous and the use of Padlet. So thank you very much. And we will have a slideshow that goes along with this that kind of takes you through these different steps and some thoughts around what kind of content you are providing via Padlet. One of the reasons we really like Padlet is that it is very mobile friendly compared to a lot of other resources or tools that we've used. So if you're working with students who are using their phones for a lot of their work with you, Padlet I think could be a really rich way for them to be able to see this and interact with it on their phones.